All right, hopefully this lesson will be pretty quick. We're just going to review some of the factoring we've seen so far this week. This will be a review day and then quiz tomorrow. Taking a look at our first example, we have an x squared term, we have an x term, and we have a constant. So we're going to start by setting up our t-chart, and we're thinking about multiplying to which number? The constant of negative 27. And then we're going to be adding to the coefficient of negative 6. So let's think about which numbers do that. I hope you came up with negative 9 times a positive 3. A negative times a positive multiplies to a negative, and negative 9 plus 3. If I have $3 and I spend 9, I spent 6 too much, so that would be a negative 6. Setting this up, y equals x minus 9 times x plus 3. Example 2, we are missing one of the terms. We have our x squared term, we have our x term, but we are missing the constant, so I'm going to go ahead and add a 0 for my constant before I set up my t-chart. I am multiplying to 0 and adding to 6. So what numbers do that? 0 times 6 and 0 plus 6. Factoring this one, we get x plus 0 and x plus 6. Now, if you need to stop here, that's fine. But for those of you that recognize this pattern now, and I hope some of you that maybe weren't comfortable at first are comfortable now, x plus 0 gives us x, and we can drop those parentheses, and then we still have our x plus 6 term. Part B, we have an x squared, an x, and a constant, so we can set up our t-chart right away. We're multiplying to 4 and adding to the coefficient of x, that negative 4. What two numbers do that? To multiply to a positive and add to a negative, I need two negatives. So I have negative 2 times negative 2, and negative 2 plus negative 2 gives me that negative 4. So when I factor this one, some of you might already recognize it as the same number, so we could simplify this. And if you're capable of simplifying it right away, great, go ahead and do that. If you need to see it in the two parentheses before you recognize, oh, that's the same thing twice, so I can write it as x minus 2 squared. Example 3, we have an x squared term and a constant, but we are missing our x term. So I'm going to add the 0x before I set up my t-chart. We are multiplying to that constant of negative 81. Don't lose those negative signs. And we're adding to 0. What two numbers do that? We need two numbers that are the same but opposite signs so that they cancel each other out when we add. Well, the two numbers that multiply to 81 are 9 and 9. One of them needs to be negative. So when we add negative 9 and 9, we get 0. This one, even though they look very similar, this is an x minus 9, and then we have an x plus 9. They are not exactly the same. 9 and negative 9 are not the same numbers, so we can't simplify this one. And our last example, we have a constant term of negative 6. And this time, what are we adding to? Our coefficient of x is 1. When you don't see a number that you're multiplying by 1. So now we're thinking about how do we multiply to a negative and add to a positive. We need one positive number and one negative number, and we have 2 times 3 to give us 6. So which one needs to be negative in order to add to a positive one? And that would be our 2. Negative 2 times 3 gives us a negative 6, and negative 2 plus 3 gives us a positive 1. So when we set this one up in factored form with our parentheses, we get x minus 2 times x plus 3. All right, I hope at this point factoring is making a little bit more sense. Please reach out to me if you do have any questions, especially before you take your quiz tomorrow. Have a great day.